Hi, and welcome to MC Podcast number 29. Today we'll be discussing kind of the overview of harvest, what we see out throughout the country, and we'll be looking at some of those. Today's in-studio guest is Kevin Koone. Kevin, welcome.
Thanks, Mark. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So just kind of give us a little background of what's been going on with you here lately.
So I'm playing catch-up a little bit today. So I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to kill one specific deer that I have had my heart set on, and he is still breaking my heart. But I'm back at work this week trying to play catch-up a little bit.
He has eluded you, huh?
He has been one step ahead of me for like 16 days now.
One step, huh?
Yeah, every time I'm on one end of the farm, he shows up on camera on the other end, and vice versa.
So do you think this is an intentional thing on his part, or is it just bad luck on your part?
It would make me feel better if it was intentional.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You know, these once a deer gets to a certain age, they are masters of their domain, and they are really good at staying alive. And he is doing a good job of it right now.
Yeah. So he may be able to sense that you are there, and he just like, whoop, I'm gonna go around the other way.
Kind of seems that way sometimes.
There you go. Absolutely. No. So we're glad you're back in the office. I'm back in the office. I think I looked at the calendar. I think there is between all of the trips and everything I've got going on, I think there's one more week from now until Christmas that I will actually be in the office. And so we're all kind of playing catch up. And
I'm trying to fill that week with meetings, by the way.
I noticed that. I got the emails, right? You know, like, oh, we need a meeting on this day, and so it'll be okay. And today was basically filled with meetings all day.
Yep.
Although they did get me a new computer while I was gone last week, and so I don't know. You know, we're working on it for those guys who can see this on YouTube. They, you know what I wanted to say there, right? The YouTubes. I wanted to do it. But anyway, so I'm kind of working out the bugs on this new computer, and so we'll see how that goes. So, being out and about, being gone for a little while, but everything. How have you heard harvest is going? You know, I mean, we're past silage harvest now. We're into grain harvest. I think most of the farms, even around the house, have taken most of their grain out. What are you hearing out in the industry, Kevin?
Yeah, so I had a chance to be out on the road some this summer, so I got a chance to see a lot of the crops in season prior to harvest. And then in October, we traveled up to Madison, Wisconsin, did World Dairy Expo. At that point, you get a chance to meet with dairymen from all around the world, really, and was getting a lot of feedback from harvest at that point. We are now at a point in the year where a lot of the silage data is slowly trickling in. We've got some university data coming in. And then, we are also far enough along now that we've got a lot of grain data that's beginning to trickle in, and it's kind of every year is different. This is one of those years, I think, on average, when you look at what's going on around the country, I think yields are going to be up.
Okay.
And that is coming as a little bit of a surprise to me because we had so many areas that struggled early on with excessive moisture. But I think right now, grain yields, silage yields, all that across the board are going to be up. Now, that's not to say there aren't pockets that have had problems, but I think on average, yields are going to be really strong this year.
Right. And I think one of the good things about this year, as far as harvests go, is the timing of harvest. Everything is, doesn't seem to be delayed. We haven't had a whole lot of delays, at least of what I've seen, either silage or grain. I think everybody's been able to get in pretty much so when they wanted to get in and get everything out without being a big mess.
Right. That was a big issue in 2016 where, especially across some of the dairy pockets of the upper Midwest, we had a lot of major weather systems move in with very heavy rain, and producers were just not able to get silage and grain out. And as a result, we wound up with a lot of silage that got harvested dry. We had a lot of late disease pressure that kind of magnified some of those problems a little bit. So we've had dairymen over the last year that have been dealing with that because they harvested that dry feed stuff.
Right.
So welcome relief to get a timely harvest in and get some good quality silage put up in the pile.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys that are seeing some pretty good quality silage this year. coming off, and I think a lot of it has to do with the timing of being able to get in and get it when they need to. So it looks like the good part of harvest this year is timing. The good part is yield, and I think that your statement overall, if we look at the averages of everything, everything looks good. In fact, we were talking right before this that you had read somewhere about what the projected national average for bushels per acre was going to be.
Yeah, actually, I read a report now, and just trying to remember off the top of my head, but they were estimating the national average to be over 170 bushels this year,
Wow.
which is really strong.
Very strong.
I would have never dreamed this spring that we'd be talking about those kind of numbers at this point in the year. But one of the things we talked about, even if you have areas that do struggle, if there's a lot of corn produced across the heart of that corn belt from central Iowa across Illinois and Indiana, when those areas are strong, there's just a lot of corn out there, and that really drives the national average.
It does.
As long as we don't have a lot of major catastrophes elsewhere, those three states really drive what's going on in the corn market.
Yeah, and so if we are projecting this higher national average, what are we looking at as far as are they projecting corn prices going up or down over the next year?
Right now, everything I'm seeing looks like steady to slightly down.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I'll tell you what to kind of jump off on a different subject with corn prices being down. Something that I noticed last week. I drove from Illinois to Texas, and something that I noticed is right there, kind of the Boot Hill of Missouri, down 55 towards Memphis, and then even 40 towards Little Rock. There was a lot of cotton planted this year, and I was, I assume that was probably a function of the fact that corn prices were a little bit lower than they have been, and so guys switched to cotton.
I think that plays a factor in it. You've got some of those areas like when you move down into the Boot Hill, Missouri, where they can do some of that. Northeast Arkansas, they'll move a lot of acres over to peanuts.
Yeah.
And what we saw here locally in Southern Illinois was we saw a lot of bean acres this year, and I think we're going to probably see even more bean acres for 2018. You have so many, and honestly, the beans are a safer bet in our part of the world because moisture tends to be so volatile. We're either really wet or really dry. Seems like on a lot of years, and the soybeans are a good safe bet. And guys can grow them with less inputs, and so we've seen a shift here locally to beans.
Yeah, I would agree that we're doing that. For with the plethora of corn that it appears that we're going to have, and the corn prices being down a little bit already, and corn grain prices, and then I don't even know where I was going there.
You're probably going to the price of feed.
I was going to the price of feed is where I was headed. So with a large amount of corn that we have, the lower prices this year, livestock producers will be able to feed cows for less. And so my wife and I, we were driving this past week, and we were talking about the amount of cotton and being that corn prices. She was like, well, does that mean grocery prices are going to be down? And so I don't know. I mean, that's always kind of the crapshoot. But yeah, so making that pound of meat or that pound of milk this year will probably cost producers less to be able to do that. And with a depressed milk market, that's really not a bad thing.
Right.
We don't, $8 corn and $16 milk is trouble.
Right.
And so with this much corn that's been made and the price kind of being down a little bit, it may help those guys have some cheaper feed.
Certainly, especially when you're talking about dairies who are buying a lot of their inputs instead of producing them on their own acres, which we see a lot with some of our larger farms, especially Western markets. Yeah. Where they're bringing in corn on rail cars, some of that stuff for some of their starch in their diet. This will help with some of the costs.
Absolutely, it will. And so yeah, so that'll be good for those guys. I think it's kind of interesting as we look at this. there were really, we talked about some droughty areas. We had the good part of harvest, the bad part of harvest, that there were some droughty areas. There really wasn't any big major ugly area that I can think of. Can you?
It was an interesting year, and I saw driving around the country, you would hit pockets where it would be really bad. So just to give you some examples, I know there were a lot of problems in southern Iowa. There was a pocket here in Illinois, not too far north of us, kind of between what I would consider southern and central Illinois.
Okay.
And there was a pocket that got hit really hard with drought. Saw some of it out in Nebraska, Dakotas. They got hit pretty hard with drought. But the core dairy pockets really did pretty well this year. So we haven't heard a whole lot of feedback about about poor yields, because most of our growers we're in areas that we're doing really well.
Yeah. And thinking through that, some of those areas like the Northeast, where last year they were droughty, this year they were pretty wet,
right,
for a while in the spring, kind of delayed some of their planting. One of the things that I wonder, I haven't seen many silage samples from out east yet, but I wonder what the starch digestibility is going to be like this year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and like you say, we had the opposite end of the spectrum in the Northeast from what we had in 2016, where we had severe drought, and we had some guys that had total losses on corn crops. And you and I were up there. I guess, man, that would have been early August.
Yeah.
We were up there, and we saw a lot of uneven corn, a lot of late planted corn, but because of all that moisture, we're certainly going to see reduced nitrogen uptake in the plants, which, as we typically see, leads to lower test weight. And that's always kind of a negative concept in the industry, because if I'm a row crop grain guy and I have a wet year, I don't get the heat I need, and I get lower test weight, I'm not going to have the weight across the scales. But different kind of result if you're a dairyman.
Yeah, definitely a different kind of result if you're a dairyman. Now, we may have a little bit lower starch in the as a percentage of dry matter in there, but it should be highly digestible, and they should be getting more out of that. Because we know that if we leach that nitrogen out of the soil, it rains too much, the nitrogen leaves the soil, or at least around the roots of the plant, and the plant doesn't take up that nitrogen, then it doesn't, when it doesn't take up that nitrogen converts to proteins in the plant, and those proteins in corn go towards some of the proline proteins in the grain, and what you will have is that softer grain texture, which is not a negative for a guy who's feeding corn, especially in a ruminant.
Right.
It's not a negative at all. In fact, it's a little bit of a positive to be able to do that. And so I think that overall, with harvest being in full swing and almost over, I think things are going to be good. Mm-hmm. I think, if we wanted to classify, the 2017 harvest, timing was good overall, except for a few pockets of different places. Everything seemed to be well. I think the feed quality in silage is going to be good this year. I have heard a few rumblings about some of the mycotoxins, and so guys may need to be keeping an eye on that. If you're feeding corn silage, be checking some of the mycotoxins in there, and seeing where those levels are. I had heard a little bit of rumbling about that, but I haven't heard much about it here lately.
Sure. Yeah, and from a master's choice perspective, it's been kind of exciting as the data's trickling in. A lot of our new hybrids are some of the ones that are performing exceptionally well this year.
Yeah.
We added a new full season, the MCT 6653. It's done really well. As data keeps coming in, we're gonna be pulling out more and more bits and pieces. I know you're really excited about the 4934,
Definitely.
the brand new 99 day.
Absolutely.
So there'll be a lot of that stuff kind of coming out in the network here over the next. I guess next week will probably be the week we'll get University of Wisconsin, and then from there it kind of comes out pretty fast.
Definitely.
So between now and Christmas, we'll have a lot of information out.
We should have a lot of information. We should have our advancement plots. We should have most of those wrapped up. I even saw samples come in today though some of those advancement plots. So we still have lots of data to go through before we can make some good solid decisions on those things. I did hear this morning in our R&D department meeting, that we were talking about some really high grain yields over in Indiana.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. There were several pockets in Indiana that were really strong.
Yeah.
So I'm anxious to sit down every year. And, one of my favorite times of the year is, it rolls around December, January, when we finally get all the data in.
Yeah.
And I can kind of sit down with you, sit down with Kyle and Cullen. And, I've got ideas in my head of what I think is going to do extremely well because of what I saw in the field this summer. But it's always a lot of fun to sit down and look at what the data actually says. And did it yield as well as it looked like it should have? And is the quality going to be what we think it should be? Because this is where we start making the decisions on what are we going to continue with? What are we going to drop? If all of a sudden we see something new, hey, Cullen, man, we need to make some crosses on this in winter because, this thing spiked a lot.
Definitely. Yeah, no, that's one of the fun things for me is to sit down and dig through all that data and look at it and say, oh, this one did really well nutritionally, and then sit down with you all and it, inevitably there are a couple that always match up and you guys say, man, this thing has looked great all year and it yielded well and it had, a great disease package and I can go, man, it had superb nutrition. And so we can go ahead and advance some of that. So definitely a fun thing. So want to kind of deviate a little bit because you said something that kind of sparked a thought in my mind. You're talking about you really like this type of year. Well, this type of year next week is going to be Thanksgiving. So what kind of big plans do the Koons have for Thanksgiving this year?
We usually lay pretty low. So for me, it's another chance to get back in the tree stand.
Yeah,
I've still got one deer that I really want to get killed. We will have a small family gathering on actually the day after Thanksgiving. We'll sit down and have dinner together, and as soon as they'll let me go, I'll run right back to my tree stand.
Run right back out. So, but this will be Flint's first Thanksgiving, right?
It will.
So you're gonna let him have the turkey leg?
I'm not even sure we're going to do a turkey this year.
What? No turkey at Thanksgiving?
Yeah, we may do something a little different. I'm actually thinking about maybe smoking some chickens, do something just a little different.
Yeah,
but yeah, he's this will be his first Thanksgiving. He'll turn a year old in December. So he's at a point now. He's eating a little bit of everything, and everything's kind of new and curious, and so it'll be a lot of fun.
That's very cool. Very cool. Yeah, so I think we kind of finalized all the Thanksgiving plans for the Kirk family. I think Dad's going to come up from Texas, and we're going to have Thanksgiving at our house. And hey, we do have the turkey. All right, so we're going to smoke a turkey, and of course, with the Kirk family, just us is a party. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
We bring the party. And so I think we're going to have several people in for our house. My wife and I were talking the other day. We do a thing every year where we get a thankful jar, and so where we all sit down and we got this big, I don't know, it's a big jar that she gets every year. I don't even know where she gets it from, and we write down things that we're thankful for. And so she was already looking forward to decorating the thankful jar and getting out all of that so that we could sit down and write all of the cool things that we're thankful for this year that have been going on.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so hopefully even by the time you get that, you can write down on your thankful card, killed the buck who has been eluding me.
I hope so. My wife told me last week that I was talking about this deer in my sleep. So it's not very often that a deer really gets in my head, but this one's kind of been in my head a little bit. So
I figured you had something going on here because we've been following each other text message and through the last week or two is you've been in the stand, I've been in the stand, and some of the other guys around the office we kind of got that going around, and I got to thinking, I was like, man, duck season is coming up pretty soon, and Kevin hadn't said a thing about duck season.
I haven't even thought about it.
Yeah, because you got monster buck in your brain.
Yep.
So that happens, man. That happens. So, so we got harvest that's already being wrapped up. We got Thanksgiving that is coming up. Anything else that you can think of that's been going around here lately?
Yeah, so something that's kind of on the horizon right now. Sat down after our full R&D meeting. Sat down with Kyle and Cullen this morning. We started making plans for Puerto Rico. So as most of you guys know, Puerto Rico got slammed back late summer, early fall with Hurricane Maria. I guess they actually had two hurricanes,
yeah.
but one heavily affected the south side of the island, where we always do winter nursery. And there was a lot of uncertainty as to whether or not we were going to be able to have a nursery there this year.
Now, when you talk about having a nursery in Puerto Rico, just explain that just a little bit.
Right. So what we do down there every winter is we'll send down inbreds. Cullen will fly down there.
Wait. Cullen's not the inbred, right?
Cullen is not the inbred.
Okay, we just make sure that's clear.
When we talk about inbreds, we are still talking about corn.
Okay. Well, you said we send down some inbreds.
So base genetics.
Cullen's going down. So.
Base genetics.
Okay.
So Cullen's working with base genetics down there, and he'll be making some inbred increases. But primarily, what he is doing is he is making developmental crosses. So gives him another cycle when he's developing a new inbred line, so he can make another cross there. We'll also make some hybrid crosses. So they'll be actually looks like Cullen's going to spend Christmas in Puerto Rico right now. But they just got us planted down there. Farm we work with planted about a little over a week ago, and so they sent pictures today, and we have corn up, road up, looks really good. So was a little skeptical if we were going to be able to pull it off after the hurricane damage, but looks like everything's a go. And I know a lot of the island is still in recovery mode.
Yeah.
So it's good to be able to go down there and our business, and along with a lot of other companies in agriculture, kind of help support some of that economy down there. So it's very thankful that we are going to be able to get a crop in down there, but also thankful that Puerto Rico didn't lose this income. Because it would have been a big hit.
Because the tourist business has already kind of been a big hit for them.
Right.
In a negative way. They've taken a bad hit because there's no tourism going on that typically goes on, especially in the fall when somebody can go down, from here in the upper Midwest and what have you, in northern states, go down and experience a little sunshine, a little tropics. But then, I remember, I can remember us sitting in R&D meetings and thinking, oh wow, are we actually going to be able to go to Puerto Rico? If we can't go to Puerto Rico, where are we going to go?
Right.
And what are we going to do? And so I am grateful that we can go there for us, but I'm also grateful that we can help out and do some things for the folks down there.
Right. Yeah, and very fortunate. The farm we work with had very minimal damage. And more importantly, the workers there, everyone survived. Everyone's families were all survived the storms. With some minor structural damage, but everyone felt really, really thankful with that severe of a storm to come out of it the way they did.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so Puerto Rico, anything else going on?
No, that's kind of it. We got the inbreds are in the ground. We've got hybrid seed on the way down there now. Okay. So Kyle Vosberg will be down probably late January, so we'll get the first look at some new hybrids. Okay. So we'll kind of make some decisions on how they get tested based on what he sees. But that'll be kind of the first round, and then we'll turn right back around and put the same seed in the ground here in the States in the spring, and then we'll start to collect a lot more data on them when we get them here in the States.
So down in Puerto Rico, we do a breeding nursery where we're actually making crosses. We're taking parent plants and actually making crosses, and then we'll have to harvest the seed off of that, and then plant it to see if we've actually done any good, right?
Correct.
And so then, but then there's also seed that we did that with this summer where we made crosses with certain inbreds and parent plants, and we sent that down to Puerto Rico.
Yep.
And so now then Kyle will go down the end of January, whenever, and he'll do like we do here with an observation plot,
right?
Where he'll go in and say, okay, this had good disease, it kept standing, it has good stature, and he'll go down and take notes, and then we'll actually get some yield off of some of those.
No, actually, we won't get yield off those.
Okay.
So the only thing we get out of Puerto Rico will just be visual observations, and we'll get those visual observations, and it gives us that initial look gives us a good idea of what's going to work and what's not.
Okay.
And then how we need to place them here in the States.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a good first look. The other thing too that I failed to mention is we've got new greenhouses going up.
Yeah.
So I've been hearing for the last couple weeks, by the end of the week. So hopefully late this week we will actually be planting greenhouse crops. Michael has a crop in his greenhouse,
Right.
and it is up and growing. We have 3 greenhouses that are in the final stages of construction here in Southern Illinois. We're hoping to start planting those this week.
Now they were talking about filling pots and with fertilizer and soil.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 2,100 pots, something like
Something
that?
like that.
In just these greenhouses in Southern Illinois.
Yeah. It's a big improvement on our overall winter capacity
Yeah.
and what we've been able to do, and pretty excited about it. And the opportunity to not only get more done in one winter cycle, but we can probably turn multiple cycles, and we've got enough buildings now that it'll kind of help us with some early inbred increases, and some things. So I think it's one of those tools that as we grow in research and development and we start adding more gene marking to what we're doing, more things where we can use that greenhouse to turn products quickly. I think it's going to help us to accelerate kind of products in the pipeline.
Yeah, definitely. And it is. It's about turning those things over, because if we just had to rely on, okay, we made the cross this summer and now we've got to wait a whole nother year before we plant it to even see if it worked.
Right.
Even see if it would even stand up or even grow or even germinate or all of those things. Then we can already jump ahead of that pretty easy with the greenhouse and the Puerto Rico thing. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of guys that I know that farm, they're already kind of heading towards vacation mode. It's getting to be close to Thanksgiving, and
the guys that aren't livestock farmers.
Well, the guy, yes, the guys that are row crop guys.
Yep.
They're already, I mean, a lot of their biggest headache right now is, well, do I wash the combine this week or
Right.
And so they're already in that. But even for us in the seed business, I mean, we've got a crop in the ground in Puerto Rico. We've got one crop in the ground in one set of greenhouses. We're fixing to have another one. I mean, this is kind of an ongoing thing. This isn't just a part of the year.
Yeah, and you got a conditioning facility that's ginning through the seed corn right now. It's rolling in every day.
Definitely, and they are rolling through all of that. So. Absolutely. So it's an interesting time of the year.
It is.
And I mean, is some things are winding down, other things are winding up for us to be able to continue to be the corn company that we are and supply that for those guys. So one of the things that I just thought about that just kind of propped my head. So these guys that are in areas that maybe their harvest wasn't as good as it ought to be. What are some things that we could suggest for those guys if maybe they didn't get enough corn silage?
Right. So, the good news is we talked about the fact that overall feedstuff costs are down.
Right.
So, if we're lacking a little bit on what we're able to grow on the farm, it's not going to cost us as much for the things we have to buy to add in.
Right.
So we do have that as a help. And with a dairy ration, and you know this better than I do, there are so many other components to it than just corn silage.
Right.
So what dairymen are going to have to do they're affected by some of these droughts is they're going to have to get a little creative and think about, how can I deliver the things that my corn silage has given me? How can I deliver those from other avenues?
Yeah. And some of that is probably going to be some harvestable cover crops, some rye, triticale. Or triticale, depending on where you are and who you're talking to, right?
Right.
Some of those things that are, some of the small grain, cereal grain type crops, cool season grasses where a guy could go in and plant those, harvest those in the spring and still get another corn crop in, and being able to do that and help supply maybe some feed that he's going to need, late in the spring, early in the summer.
Yeah, and we're late enough in the year now that hopefully guys, jumped on some of this and got some things planted where, because you do have the option on some of these small grains and things that you could have taken a fall harvest, a quick harvest off of some things, and then turned around and then had a full-blown haylage crop in the spring,
Right.
With like you say, your triticales, some of your oats and peas and things like that, kind of give you some of those opportunities. So hopefully we had guys taking advantage of that window. But they definitely can bring some of that feed stuff in from other places.
Yeah, definitely. And then like you said, with commodity corn and bean and stuff prices being down a little bit, having to go buy those isn't going to be necessarily as detrimental as it could be with commodity prices that would be higher and up.
Right. And and one of the other things too that we haven't talked about, that with commodity prices being lower, and I've seen this with big farms, is that some of these guys that either don't have enough acres to grow their own corn silage, or they had a low, they see they're going to have a bad harvest, they're not going to have as much time, or not going to have as much corn silage as they need. Right now, it's pretty easy to get row crop guys to work with you, because he knows if he takes it to grain, he's only going to get 3 something a bushel if he goes to the elevator.
Yeah.
So if he can help you out and grow the corn silage that you need, a lot of times it's more productive for him to work with you than it is to haul it to the elevator.
Absolutely.
When corn's at $7, he doesn't really care about the dairyman. He's just going to make a big pile of corn, haul it to the elevator, and cash in his checks. But because of where commodity prices are at, it's changing the marketplace a little bit, and it's given some of the dairymen a little more leverage, I guess, with some of their growers, to get them to grow the crops they want, to get them to kind of work on a program that better fits the dairy than what they've been able to do in the past.
Definitely. Good. Kevin, thanks for joining me today. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you coming in, talking through some of this with me. So I'll be off and gone tomorrow, and so I probably won't see you until like almost Thanksgiving, maybe even after.
Yeah, we'll probably see each other briefly, and then maybe a week in December we'll do a few meetings, and then that'll be about it.
There will be it. So, well, good. Hey guys, thanks for listening in today. We appreciate you listening in, and we do. We hope that you have a happy Thanksgiving with your family and friends. And so as always, you can find us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, on YouTube, and always at seedcorn.com. Thanks for listening.